you believe Kamala Harris is up to the job if called upon?
Absolutely. You know, once again, Howard University is coming to save the day. That's my Bison sister.
Yeah.
And, you know, she's vice president for a reason. She's been a great teammate to Joe Biden. They together have been a pretty superior team. And so if by chance, and it's a big if, Joe Biden were to step aside, the heir apparent would be Kamala Harris. I know folks are flirting with, you know, Governor Whitmer of Michigan and Governor Beshear of Kentucky.
And they say they're riding with Biden.
Absolutely. But the thing is, you know, we will naturally, all of the delegates would naturally go to Vice President Harris.
President Biden is running against a man who was convicted of 34 felony counts. However, if you go by what the polls say, people are putting the age concerns apparently over that in some of these key states. So what does that say about the electorate right now?
Well, I'll say this. I still think it's too early to really pay attention to the polls. Polls are important as political junkies. You know, we look at polls all the time.
And they're always right.
Right. Exactly.
Just ask President Hillary Clinton.
Precisely. And so I think, honestly, as we get closer to the November 5th election, we should start looking at those polls. People will start to pay attention. And the differences between the two candidates. I think we have short memories in this country about what we went through, you know, 4 years ago. And, you know, the COVID deaths, the craziness that surrounded that. We need to understand that 3.5 years ago, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris came in and they rescued us from, you know, certain doom in a sense. So
let's now head over to our political analyst. Joining us now is Troy Prestwood. He's a political consultant and also a commentator. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And Troy, what's your reaction to Trump not participating?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think anytime you're given a chance to talk to voters, you should take it. You know, I don't know if he didn't think that this was, you know, his territory or if it was going to be a friendly conversation. But at the end of the day, when you are given a chance to talk directly to voters, which he was given by this network, he should have taken it. So missed opportunity for sure. Maybe there's still time. I don't know, but he certainly missed up. He missed his opportunity on this one, and that's a red flag for that campaign.
Yeah. So let's get back to Angela Alsobrooks. What grades would you guys give her from her forum today?
Well, I'm going to give her a B+. She missed several opportunities, though, to talk about what she would do in the Senate. She said that she will certainly support this, and it depends on what the legislation looks like, but she missed an opportunity to distance herself from her opponent to say, here is my proposal, here is my legislation to address the things that you asked her earlier. So for that reason, I can't give her a solid A, but B+, I thought she had command of the issues. I thought she was certainly speaking to those undecided Maryland voters, and there are still a number of them, but she has a lot of work. Her campaign has a lot of work to do, and so to not have specific policies or legislation that she could have announced here on this program, that's a miss.
And real quick with the final question here, what are your thoughts on voters and leaders rather in her own county there not supporting her? What does that say to voters?
Usually you would look at something like that and say, what's going on in Prince George's County, right? And I think that's a fair question that voters have to ask. But I do think there's some personality differences there among the leaders in the county and herself, and so that's what you're seeing playing out there. But she's right to say, I have 40 other people who do support me throughout the state of Maryland. And she has the Washington Post endorsement, like my friend here said. So the fact that she doesn't have a lot of support there, that's interesting. But overall, I think she has support, and she needs to tout that more.
All right, Tyleek, Troy, thanks so much for joining us.
So let's talk about some of the big stories of the week with my guest tonight. We have D.C. community advocate, former ANC Commissioner Troy Prestwood. And I wanted to start with what we saw play out this week around the country, but here in D.C. at GW, we had the protests going on. I believe we're in day 9 of these pro-Palestinian protests. What we're seeing in D.C. is a far different cry than what we're seeing across the country right now.
I actually think that there has been immense restraint shown here in D.C., and that's just because the mayor and the police department have thought that maybe we don't want to be cracking people over the heads like they're doing in other places. I want to say this though about the protest in general, is that I think protest is as American as apple pie. And so campuses here like GW all across the country, wherever, it's okay for students to protest. What's not okay, though, is that if you're threatening other students, let's say our Jewish students in particular, that's a problem. And so for that reason, I can understand why a university will want to expel that student, or if they're damaging, campus property. But just for protesting, I have an issue with that. I really do. And I think what happened in Florida, what happened in UCLA, what happened in New York, the reason why D.C. looks different is because there's been immense restraint happening here.
Not everybody out there is pro-Hamas, as they've been painted. There are people who have genuine concerns about a humanitarian crisis, but Jewish students have a right to feel safe on their campus.
They do. And, and I want to say something else about the Republicans that came off of the Hill and went over to DW to try to create this show, and this dog and pony show, basically. Shame on them for trying to use Washington, D.C. to say we're going to take away your autonomy, that we're going to bring you up on, to have hearings, because they want to say that D.C., our mayor, our government should be doing more. They have protests happening in their own states. They should talk to their mayors, their governors about what's happening there. So I think what happened with the folks on the Hill, that's shameful.
Let's move on. Members of Gen Z appear to be making a conscious decision to drive less. Instead, they're turning more to rideshare services and public transportation. New data shows the number of 16-year-olds and 18-year-olds with driver's licenses are down about 20% since the 1980s. So, Troy, what do you think about when younger people say, hey, we're not going to drive here?
Hey, I remember when I was 16, I couldn't wait to get my driver's license. Shout out to my cousin Tammy. She let me drive her white Geo Metro over at the old Brentwood site in D.C. to get my license. Listen, I think this is something that's happening right now because we see high prices with housing, with food. We just talked about eggs, and with other necessities. And so I think young people are saying, hey, why do I need this extra expense if I could Uber, if I could use a scooter, a bike, walk, Metro. I did say Metro. Metro. So, I get it. For me, though, I love to drive. But I know that others, it's changing for them.
I want to switch gears completely here. Two stories. One thing that caught my eye. Politico's out with a story that says President Biden is getting kid glove treatment from late night comics who are airing on other channels at this present moment out there. And I'm curious, let me start with you on this one, Troy. I think he gives them less material. It's different material than what they got during the Trump and Bush years, but you certainly don't see that.
Well, you're the only Jimmy I watch.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, I just want to keep it real. So here's the thing. I think when you look at Joe Biden, what's the thing about him? He's old, he stumbles, he's a gaffe machine. Okay, there you go. However, if you look at who is on the other side, you have someone who has been twice impeached. You have someone who is, basically the shoo-in for the Republican primary, the Republican nominee. And he's in court right now. I think, honestly, the jokes write themselves. So that's why you see more of a focus, I think, on the absurdity of what's happening with the former president than the current president. What is he? He's a gaffe machine. Okay, who doesn't make gaffes? But even who doesn't trip up some stairs every now and then? I tripped up the stairs coming up here to Fox 5.
Guys, we're out of time. I appreciated both Troy and Chris. Thanks for coming in tonight. We'll save the Kristi Noem stuff for another time because that's not going away anytime soon. Justice for Chris.
It's rough.
The Final Five is back.
Literally.
Final Five.
The intelligence community all agree that Russia tampered with the 2016 election and used information warfare to sow further division and mistrust among Americans. It's likely that they will interfere with the 2020 election as well. So as a candidate, how will you ensure your campaign will not be infiltrated by Russia? And secondly, as president, how will you eliminate this threat once and for all to restore confidence to our electoral process?
Thank you very much for that question. Unlike Donald Trump, I have no doubt that what you said is true.